Chapter 4. What Books and Burials Tell Us. Mary in the Library. As the bell rang, the teacher asked the students to follow him because they were going to the library for the first time. When Mary stepped inside, she found that the library was much larger than their classroom, and there were so many shelves, all full of books. In one corner was a cupboard filled with large old volumes. Seeing her trying to open the cupboard, the teacher said, "That cupboard has very special books on different religions. Did you know that we have a set of the Vedas?" "What are Vedas?" Many wondered. Let us find out. One of the oldest books in the world. You may have heard about the Vedas. There are 4 of them: the Rigveda, Samved, and Yajurved and Atharvaved. The oldest Veda is Rigveda, about 3,500 years ago. The Rigveda includes more than 1,000 hymns called Sukta or well said. These hymns are in praise of various gods and goddesses. 3 gods are especially important: Agni, the god of fire; Indra, a warrior god; and Soma, a plant from which special drink was prepared. These hymns are composed of sagas. Sages, rishis, priests taught students to recite and memorize each syllable, word and sentence bit by bit with great care. Most of the hymns were composed, taught and learned by men. A few were composed by women. The Rigveda is in Old or Vedic Sanskrit, which is different from Sanskrit you learn in these school days. Sanskrit and other languages. Sanskrit is part of family of languages known as Indo-European. Some Indian languages such as Assamese, Gujarati, Hindi, Kashmiri and Sindhi, Asian languages such as Persian, and many European languages such as English, French, German, Greek, Italian and Spanish belong to this family. They are called family because they originally had words in common. Take the words Matar, Sanskrit, Ma, Hindi and Mother English. Do you notice any similarities? Other languages used in the subcontinent belong to different families. For instance, those used in Northeast belong to Tibetan Burman family. Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam belong to Dravidian family, and the languages spoken in Jharkhand and parts of central India belongs to Austro-Asiatic family. List the languages you have heard about and try and identify the families to which they belong. The books we use are written and printed. The Rigveda was recited and heard rather than read. It was written down several centuries after it was first composed and printed less than 200 years ago. How historians study the Rigveda. Historians like archaeologists find out about the past, but in addition to material remains, they examine written sources as well. Let us see how they study the Rigveda. Some of the hymns in the Rigveda are in form of dialogues. This is a part of one such hymn, a dialogue between a sage named Vishwamitra and 2 rivers, Beas and Satluj, that were worshipped as goddess. A page from manuscript of the Rigveda. The manuscript of the Rigveda on birch bark was found in Kashmir. About 150 years ago, it was used to prepare and one of the earliest printed texts of the Rigveda as well as an English translation. It is now preserved in library in Pune, Maharashtra. Vishwamitra and the rivers. Vishwamitra, O rivers, come down for the mountains like 2 swift horses, like 2 shining cows that lick their calves. You move like chariots in the sea through the power of Indra. You are full of water and wish to unite with one another. The rivers. We who are full of water move along the path the gods have made for us. Once we start flowing, we cannot be stopped. Why do you pray to us, O sage? Vishwamitra, O sisters, please listen to me, a singer who has come from a distance with his chariots and carts. Let your waters not rise above our axles, so that we can cross safely. The rivers will listen to your prayers so that you can cross safely. Historians point out that this hymn was composed in the area where these rivers flow. They also says that the sage lived in a society where horses and cows were valued. That is why the rivers are compared to horses and cows. Do you think chariots were also important? Give reason for your answer. Read the verses and find out what are the modes of transport that are mentioned. Other rivers, especially the Indus and its other tributaries and the Saraswati, are also named in hymns. The Ganga and Yamuna are named only once. Cattle, horses and chariots. There are many prayers in the Rigveda for cattle, children, especially sons, and horses. Horses were yoked to chariots that were used in battles which were fought to capture cattle. Battles were also fought for land which was important for pasture and for growing hardy crops that ripened quickly, such as barley. Some battles were fought for water and to capture people. Some of the wealth that was obtained was kept by the leaders, some was given to the priest, and the rest was distributed amongst the people. Some wealth was used for performance of yajnas or sacrifices in which offerings were made into the fire. These were meant for god and goddesses. Offerings could include ghee, grain, and in some cases animals. Most men took part in these wars. There was no regular army, but there were assemblies where people met and discussed matters of war and peace. They also chose leaders who were often brave and skillful warriors. Words to describe people. There are several ways to describing people in terms of the work they do, the language they speak, the place they belong to, their family, their communities, and cultural practices. Let us see some of the words used to describe people found in the Rigveda. There are two groups who are described in terms of their work: the priests, the sometimes called Brahmins, who performed various rituals, and the Rajas. The Rajas were not like the ones who you will be learning about later. They did not have capital cities, palaces or armies, nor did they collect taxes. Generally, sons did not automatically succeed fathers as Rajas. Read the previous section once more and see whether you can find out what the Rajas did. The two words were used to describe people or the community as whole. One was the word Jana, which we still used in Hindi and other languages. The other was Vish. The word Vaishya comes from Vish. You will learn more about this in chapter 5. Several Vish or Jana are mentioned by name, so we find reference to the Puru Jana or Vish, the Bharat Jana or Vish, and the Yadu Jana or Vish, and so on. Do any of these names sound similar? Familiar? Sometimes the people who composed the hymns described themselves as Aryas and called the opponents as Dasas or the Sioux. These were people who did not perform sacrifices and probably spoke different languages. Later the term Dasa and the feminine Dasi came to mean slaves. Slaves were women and men who were often captured in war. They were treated as property of their owners, who could make them do whatever work they wanted. While Rigveda was being composed in northwest of the subcontinent, there were other developments elsewhere. Let us look at some of these. Silent sentinels, the story of megaliths. Look at the illustration on the next page. These stone boulders are known as megaliths, literally big stones. These were carefully arranged by people and were used to mark burial sites. The practice of erecting megaliths began around 300 years ago and was prevalent throughout the Deccan, South India, and in the northeast and Kashmir. Some important megalith sites are shown on map 2. While some megaliths can be seen on the surface, other megalithic burials are often underground. Sometimes archaeologists find a circle of stone boulders or a single large stone standing on the ground. These are the only indications that there are burials beneath. There were several things that people did to make megaliths. We have made a list here. Try and arrange them in correct order. Digging pits in the earth, transporting stones, breaking the boulders, placing stones in position, finding suitable stones, shaping stones, and burying the dead. So it will be like digging pits in the earth, transporting stones, breaking boulders, placing stones in position, finding suitable stone, shaping stones, and burying the dead. All these burials have some common features. Generally, the dead were buried with distinctive pots, which are called as black and red ware. Also found are tools and weapons of iron and sometimes skeletons of horses, horse equipment, and ornaments of stone and gold. This type of megalith is known as cyst. Some cysts like the one shown here have portholes which could be used as entrance. Was iron used in Harappan cities? Iron equipment found from megalith burials. Left top, horse equipment. Left below, X below a dagger. Finding out about social differences. Archaeologists think that objects found with a skeleton probably belong to dead persons. Sometimes more objects are found in one grave than other. Find Brahmagiri on map 2, where one skeleton was buried with 33 gold beads, 2 stones beads, 4 copper bangles, and 1 conch shell. Other skeleton has only few pots. These finds suggest that there was some different status among the people who were buried. Some were rich, other poor, some chiefs, other followers. Were burial spots meant for certain families? Sometimes megaliths contain more than one skeleton. These indicate that people perhaps belonging to the same family were buried in same place, though not at same time. The bodies of those who died later were brought into the grave through the portholes. Stone circles or boulders placed on the surface probably served as signposts to find out the burial site so that people could return to the same place whenever they wanted to. A special burial at Inam Gaon. Find Inam Gaon on map 2. It is a site on the river God, a tributary of the Bhima. It was occupied between 3600 and 2700 years ago. Here, adults were generally buried in the ground, laid out straight, with the head towards the north. Sometimes burials were within the houses. Vessels that probably contained food and water were placed with the dead. One man was found buried in a large 4-legged clay jar in the courtyard of a 5-roomed house, one of the largest out at the site, in the center of the settlement. This house also had a granary. The body was placed in a cross-legged position. Do you think this was the body of a chief? Give reason for your answer. What skeletal studies tell us? It is easy to make out of the skeleton of a child from its small size. However, there are no major differences in the bones of the girl and a boy. Can we make out whether a skeleton was that of a man or a woman? Sometimes people decide on the basis of what is found with the skeleton. For instance, if a skeleton is found with jewelry, it is sometimes thought to be that of a woman. However, there are problems with that. Often men also wore ornaments. A better way of figuring out the gender of a skeleton is to look at the bone structure. The hip of the pelvic area of the woman is generally larger to enable childbearing. These distinctions are based on modern skeletal studies. About 2000 years ago, there was a famous physician named Charak who wrote a book on medicine known as Charak Samhita. There he states that human bodies has 360 bones. This is much larger number than 200 bones that are recognized in modern anatomy. Charak arrived at the figure of counting by the teeth, joints, and cartilage. How do you think he found out about the human body in such great detail? Occupation at Inam Gaon. Archaeologists have found seeds of wheat, barley, rice, pulses, millet, peas, and sesame. Bones of a number of animals, many bearing cut marks that show they may have been used as food, have also been found. These include cattle, buffalo, goat, sheep, dog, horse, ass, pig, sambar, spotted deer, black buck, antelope, hare, and mongoose, besides birds, crocodile, turtle, crab, and fish. There is evidence that fruits such as bear, amla, jamun, dates, and variety of berries were collected. Use this evidence to list the possible occupation of the people at Inam Gaon. Elsewhere, find China in your atlas. Around 3500 years ago, we find some of the first evidence of writing in China. These writings were on an animal bones. These are called oracle bones because they were used to predict the future. Kings got scribes to write question on the bones. Would they win battles? Would their harvest be good? Would they have sons? The bones were then put into the fire, and they cracked because of the heat. Then fortune tellers studied these cracks and tried to predict the future. As you may expect, they sometimes made mistakes. These kings lived in palaces, in cities. They amassed vast quantities of wealth, including large, elaborately decorated bronze vessels. However, they did not know the use of iron. List one difference between Raja of the Rigveda and these kings.